start recording the session, and just welcome to our final sort of content session, which is our learning unit 7, chapter 10, where we are looking at marketing communication. So I know you guys are very busy this week getting your part 2 of your portfolio of evidence sorted, and just wishing you well. And the good news is that we are nearly at the end of the road, which is so nice. And you'll find that time will go quite quickly now. And this chapter, Learning Unit 7, which we look at what is called marketing communication, is the last part of what you need to know for your final portfolio of evidence. And tonight, if you've even looked at your final part, and I'm assuming most of you guys haven't, you will see that it is very, very application-based. So we're not looking at theory. Here, for your final POE, you are tasked to put together a kind of marketing campaign strategy for your particular product line that you've identified in part 2. So what I want to do this evening is to just kind of explain marketing communication, touch on the different types of it. And whilst we do that, for you guys to think very carefully what is relevant to your particular chosen company, brand, product line, etc. So that's what I'd like to do. I've also sent you quite a lot of videos on this chapter. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at them, but they are very, very easy. They're easy to follow, and they should give you, in fact, all the information that you need. But before we start, are there any questions? Okay, thank you. Well, let's get going. So we are looking at our final part of this course, which is called Marketing Communications. And again, I always take you back to the beginning, and we look at our 4 Ps, our marketing strategy. Remember, we have looked at the marketing environment. We've done the segmentation, targeting, and positioning process to get our target market. And we have looked, firstly, we looked at product decisions. We have looked at pricing decisions. We have looked at place decisions, distribution decisions. Those are what you are completing for your part 2 this week. And then this chapter looks at what we call promotion decisions, or what we call marketing communications. And what we call it is not what is important. All this last P, the promotional side of our marketing strategy, is all about is informing your customers of your products and services and brands, etc. So that is really important to understand, is that we know that this P is all about telling your customer. And because we are exposed to so much, I suppose, marketing communications. Now, when we start studying marketing, we think this is what marketing is. And hopefully you guys by now have learned that marketing is so much more than just advertising and promotions and media, etc., etc. There's a whole lot of things that take place before you tell your customers about your product, your service, your brand, your company, whatever it may be. But the final P is about how do we tell, and how do we promote, and how do we persuade, remind, and influence our target market for our product and services. And remember that all these Ps that we're looking at now are for a specific target market. So our promotions, our communications are for a specific target market. So if you are trying to communicate with a market that is, say, a very old demographic, say you are, your positioning and your target market are senior citizens, you are not going to communicate on Instagram Why? Because that's not something that that target market would find convenient or suitable for that particular product. So that's what marketing communication is. That's where it fits into our marketing strategy again. And this slide is actually a very nice summary slide. Again, your textbook is quite detailed, but this is telling us these are the tools that marketers use. These are the tools that marketers use to inform, remind, and persuade us to purchase products and services. And as I say, we're not going to go into the theory tonight because that's not what you need. I also just wanted to quickly touch on, a value proposition, which we talked about very briefly in one of our previous episodes, and also what you are doing for part 2. But remember that value propositions come in all sorts of different shapes and forms, and it is really about your promise to the customer. In terms of your chosen market segment, it is about trying to influence that customer to purchase your product or service. And there's all sorts of different ways that you can do that. So I just wanted to briefly touch on that. So how do companies communicate with their customers? How do they inform, remind, and persuade? Well, one of the ways that we are incredibly familiar with is advertising. We know what advertising is, and we know that companies pay for advertising. It is not free. It's very expensive depending on the format that you use. And if we look at different formats, and I'm not going into the pros and cons and why you would do this and why you would do that, but if we look at the different formats of advertising, we can see that there are 4 major types. And in your final portfolio of evidence, you are tasked to create one of these types anyway. So if we look at, when we talk about paid advertising, how do companies communicate with us? In written form, magazines, newspapers, etc., via radio, so national, local, sometimes international podcasts, etc. Here, on the bottom right here, we call it what is called outdoor advertising. These are billboards, both digital and just completely still, that we see all over the world, particularly in huge cities, on highways, etc. And the final part here is what we call our digital media. And the one thing that I wanted to say, and we've seen it ourselves, is we've seen an enormous shift in advertising in the last few years, a shift away from printed elements, things that are not easily changed, to the more digital space. And there's a whole lot of reasons for that. It's market changes, technology, developments, and cost is a big thing. It is much easier to change something digitally than it is in print. And yes, there's been a real move away from what we call the traditional, the print, the TV, and the radio forms of advertising, to more what we call social media and digital. We're not going to go into what advertising can do because we don't need to know that. We just need to understand that it is one of the ways that companies communicate with us. Another way, which we again are exposed to time and time again, is what we call shopper marketing or sales promotions. And these can be when you walk into a supermarket, when you walk into Woolworths or Pick n Pay or wherever it may be, and there is a lady who is promoting a new brand of, say, pizza or any other form of product there, where you can have a little taste, and then if you can take a coupon or a discount, or you get a value promotion. And this type of communication is really about trying to get us to not only be informed about, say, a particular new product or service, but get us to like a new product and switch to it. And shop and sales promotion is very much to try and change people's behavior there and then. Advertising is much more longer term. Shopper marketing and sales promotion is come, buy now, and you will get a benefit of it. And sales promotion has great impacts in terms of switching brands and purchasing more. So we all love a bargain. And again, this can be very much on a digital space or in a face-to-face space walking into a particular store. Third form of ways that companies communicate with us and try and inform, remind, persuade is what we call direct response marketing. And this form of marketing communication has a very, very bad reputation, because these are what we have known in the past as these invasive emails, invasive texts that we don't want. We never ask to hear from Nando's and all the various specials. But this type of marketing is normally done via email or SMS or any form of digital format where they are trying to create a relationship with us. So they have our details, etc., and they're trying to form long-term relationships with us. As I say, is it effective? Yes. It builds up customer information. It goes into a database, but we tend to get a little bit annoyed by what we call direct response marketing. And laws in South Africa actually have changed quite significantly, because unless you are an actual customer, you are not legally allowed to contact that customer. So if I have never bought something from Uber Eats, there's the example I've got on the screen for you, and I suddenly get, well, I'm not an Uber customer, then how come I'm getting a communication, say a WhatsApp or an SMS from them? So the laws are changing to protect us a little bit here, but a very effective, quick, easy, and relatively cheap form of marketing communication available to marketers. Now, the next one, which we have seen this entire weekend, is what we call sponsorship and event marketing. And this is very popular, particularly with certain types of products, brands, industries, etc. And this is where a company, brand, or product aligns itself with some form of event happening in the world. And we've just had the Rugby World Cup, which has just happened this weekend, and thank goodness for that favourable result, my word. But this is an excellent form of marketing communications for so many reasons. It's a very expensive form of marketing communication, but what it does, it aligns brands with events, and there's a lot of exposure there. And it's often to do with sport. It's often to do with other major world events. It could be trade shows, all sorts of things. But the examples that I've got for you here, there we can see our famous captain. My goodness, is he not the flavour of the month, and probably the most popular person in South Africa at the moment? But there is an example of sponsorship and event marketing, MTN, and especially the big companies do this a lot with sporting events. They link their companies to specific sporting events, teams. It can be even individual athletes to communicate with their target markets. So a very, very effective form of marketing communication. Also, as I said, a very expensive form of marketing communication. And we're not going to go into the benefits of it, because I think we can see. Yes, I think they did. You're quite right. They must have had an enormous return on investment. Having said that, that would have cost a lot of money to sponsor them and to link with that. And and it's been a while now, the Olympic Games in 2010 that was held in London. Coca-Cola was the main, what we call headline sponsor of that Olympic Games, and that was the most expensive sponsorship in the world. Can you believe it? Did they have a return on investment? According to them, yes, they did. But very effective. I mean, if we just think of South Africa, our local stuff, obviously certain products are linked to events that are relevant. So we often have Energy linked to the comrades and stuff like that. But incredibly effective form of marketing communication. The next form, which we again, and it's quite nice because we're also familiar with this, is what we call personal selling. And this is very different to advertising, events, direct response marketing, because this is where there is communication between a salesperson and the individual customer. So it might be not face-to-face communication, but it often is. And it depends on the industry, it depends on the brand, it depends on the company. But personal selling is an incredibly effective form of marketing communication. Why? Because you can ask questions, you can get a little bit more detail. There's so much more that you can ask a person, even at the end of even if it's like a robotic relationship. But especially in particular industries, certainly in finance and insurance, etc., this form of personal selling is very, very effective. But it is a one-on-one relationship and form. So that also makes it very expensive. It's very expensive to have salespeople who are constantly contacting customers or potential customers. And then we have what is called public relations and word of mouth. And I think we know what word of mouth means. This is when I say to you guys, oh my word, I saw a new Lindt chocolate in the shops yesterday. I went and I bought it. It was amazing. And tomorrow you guys walk into a shop and go, oh my word, that's what she was talking about. I'm going to try it. So word of mouth is one of the most effective marketing communication tools there is, for a number of reasons. Firstly, you're getting, remember, the opinion leaders and the reference groups, people that you actually trust and have a relationship, telling you about a product or a brand, but also it's free. So word of mouth is completely free. Public relations is a form of marketing communication which is non-paid for. So it is part of a business setup where companies would then write articles about their products or services, but not effectively advertise it as we know it. But both public relations, they're quite similar. They are incredibly effective forms of marketing communication. Certainly, companies now use what is called brand ambassadors, especially youngsters in target markets on the social media platforms, where as a brand ambassador, you then start promoting word of mouth. And I actually noticed it when I was starting to look at all the Rugby World Cup footage on Instagram, and I looked at, interestingly, the WAGs, the wives and girlfriends of the Springbok players, and they were all promoting, because they're all gorgeous, oh my word, they are just drop dead. It's amazing how you can track gorgeous girls when you are famous rugby players, and they're all promoting brands on Instagram, and that is they would have been contacted by the companies, they would have been told, look, you're gorgeous, you're a Springbok rugby player's girlfriend or wife, and we'd like you to just post on Instagram. And that is free. So very effective, and it's becoming more and more part of word of mouth, which you Would you take Rachel Khaleesi's word on it for a skin treatment? Well, at this stage, I would. So here we're going back not only to marketing communication, but we're talking about people's reference groups and opinion leaders in certain markets. And then the last one I wanted to chat about, and it's always the best for last, or the most popular for last, or the, going towards the future for last, is our digital media marketing. And this is, as I said, there's been a move away from our traditional forms of advertising and marketing to digital media. And I mean, I don't know how old you guys are, what forms of social media platforms you're on, etc., but this is the future. And when we are talking about digital media marketing as a form of communication, it's so much wider than just Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We can keep going. In fact, not Twitter, sorry, X, TikTok, Snapchat. I mean, we can keep going depending on what age group you are. But it is about using your company websites, using SEO, search engine optimization, SEO, to make sure that when you type in on Google, your particular brand or product or company comes up first. It's using all forms of online advertising. All these cookies drive us crazy, we know, but again, it is a we were just talking about return on investment. The cost is very low, so the return is higher. And also with any form of digital marketing and digital communication, it can be changed very quickly. So very effective, very important, going for the future. Email marketing, that's what we talked about, direct response, all sorts of different tools, blogging, podcasting, mobile marketing. Now in South Africa, with 62 million people, of which most of our country are incredibly poor, you are still marketing the whole time because of smartphones. And that has created such a bigger market for marketing communication. So mobile marketing, and then obviously our social media marketing, which is becoming more and more and more powerful. And as I said, it is very much dependent, and I want to go back to the one particular slide, but I'll just finish off quickly first. It is very much dependent on your target market, as to what you choose in terms of how to communicate with your customers. I'm not going to go into it. I've already said it, but digital versus traditional marketing has so many more benefits. And the other thing is it's building relationships, it's creating activities for customers online or in a social media platform to engage with. And we can see the younger generations now, my word, that phone has become an attachment. And I say younger, I think it applies to all of us. But now you literally have a digital format at the end of everybody's hand. And all marketers should be using that incredibly, incredibly effectively. So what I want to go back to the slide from the very beginning. I'm just going to try and do it quickly. Sorry about that. While I'm doing this, are there any questions regarding the different types? This is it's very easy. We're all familiar with different types of marketing communications. And as I said, this is about you selecting for your particular brand, product line, whatever you've chosen for part 2, what will be effective for you and why. That is your final part. And that's why we don't have to go into the nitty-gritty here, but just to really understand what each one is and what they bring to the party. And good, effective marketing communications campaigns are what they call integrated marketing communications. They are taking 2 or 3 or 4, sometimes 5 different forms of communication and sending the same message in different ways to that target market. So the point here is that the marketing communications, just along the lines as distribution and price and product, are all designed for your selected target market. And so the communications to retired South Africans would be very, very different to the communication strategies for Generation X, for example. In fact, your product would be different, your price would be different, your distribution would be different, and my goodness, your promotion would be different. So the key to the marketing tools is the understanding of your target market. And we've done that, and you guys did that mainly really effectively in your part 1. So that's really what I wanted to go through with you this evening, just to touch upon the different types, for you to start thinking, what will be effective for you in your selected company. And if you haven't already watched the videos, because there's on each one to give you a little bit more detail, to go and do that before you write your final part. But I know you're very busy this week as you are hopefully signing off part 2 in the next couple of days. But are there any questions? Okay. What I would like to do, and I'm not going to do it till next week, because I don't want to derail you from part 2. Next week, I'm going to send you some videos that some students created for me last semester, just to give you a little idea for your final part. Because but I don't want to derail you yet, because you have to focus on part 2. But I will certainly start adding value over and above this particular collab session to your final part. But thank you, everybody. So if there are no questions, all the very best for the submission of part 2. And I will be in touch on Monday, start sending you some stuff to think about, and looking at some very clever students from last semester, just to give you an idea, and we can go from there. So enjoy the rest of your evening. Load shedding is back. Is that not scary? So as the World Cup ends, we're up sitting in the dark now. So yeah, enjoy. Let me see, just read what you're saying, Priscilla. Yes, it's 9 o'clock. On your email, I don't know what email, but please always check the pairs. There have been changes in the past as to submission time, which is always a problem, and but always go back and check the pairs. I have sent you an updated pairs, but I'm pretty sure it's 9 o'clock, but I'd really like you to check it on there too. Yes, I know, Karen. Oh, yes, I know. That's why I don't want you to have a heart attack. We will work through it next week. Okay. So just focus on part 2, and then we will work towards, we might have another little session, because you've got your NSS, your national support session on the final part as well. So don't worry about that, but we'll work together. So thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And I will be in touch next week. Okay, take care. Bye.